All right. Yeah, it looks like a mess. Um, I'm not 100% finished on it. Plus the valve covers will go on and make it look a lot nicer. So I'm gonna concentrate on engine, the Mopar kit, the wiring, the body kit, some relays, stuff like that. It might be a little bit boring of a video, but this is probably the most tedious part. But we'll take a look at the instructions. Okay. All right, so this is the Mopar's engine harness and body harness. I just kind of marked what video I did on each one, like the fuel, and then exhaust manifolds, engine mounts, and this is just notes I took as I was putting everything in. All that stuff's done already. Then they tell you how to operate and safety precautions and all that stuff. Coolant and stuff. I've got a top hose. I've got my radio installed. I've got a top hose. I'm working on the bottom one. I'm gonna do that in a separate video. More fuel stuff. Vacuum. I'm gonna run power brakes and my hideaway headlights. I covered that. 45 degree. Take that cooler off. Yeah. Air filter. Okay, so this is where the instructions start. For the engine harness. I'm not going to go through each one, and I didn't film anything just because it's pretty self-explanatory. It's not that bad. You just start, I laid it out because I knew where the injectors were on each side, so I just kind of draped it over and laid it out. And before I connected anything, I made sure everything was going to stretch and fit. So like capacitors, one on the back of each head, and then there's a ground that comes with it. And I did a ground for each head just because you can never have too many grounds. And then these are your injectors and your ignition and fuel. And so if you're facing the front, you got 2, 4, 6, 8. So everything's pretty much, it's numbered pretty easy, to follow along. And then you got the ones on the other side. So this is where it gets to where you might have to do something. The starter wire and the solenoid wire, they will have to be extended if it's on the driver's side. So because I'm running an auto trans in this car, the starter's on the driver's side and not this side. So the wires came over here. They wanted to come down there. So what I did was I undid the wire. I laid it out on the ground, undid the wire, and then I looped it back on the other side, but I still had to extend it. I didn't undo the wire all the way. So I extended it and the solenoid wire for it. And that wasn't too bad. I have a soldering kit and heat shrink and all that stuff. I've done that before. When I built this truck, I soldered all the connections that I had to extend. Alternator plugs, all the knock sensors and all that stuff. All this stuff, once I got the starter wire extended, that's the first thing I did, is extend those two. And I draped the harness on here and then measured how much I'd need to go. Then the rest just plugged in. All this stuff is plugged in. The only thing I haven't done is this, and it's because I need to install these coolant lines back in. Because now that I have these wires, I've got those coolant lines, so I can tuck these down in there and then run my coolant lines, and then this goes up underneath. That's the last plug I have. Okay, O2 sensors are in. Okay, so this is the body harness. Let me get inside. Now, you know what? So I chose to mount my stuff out here, and it's because I'd have to undo the whole harness and drill a hole and put it in there, and I just didn't care to do that. Plus, the factory cars have them mounted in the engine bay, and they're not close to the headers or anything, so I'm not worried about the heat. And this is the fuse box that comes with it. So on the body one, you've got you won't use those. Okay, 12-volt source provided when the key is in crank position. This is for that starter relay. So what I did was I ran that I'm running that back out here. I ran that back outside, and the reason I did this is for this solenoid right here. So that will connect to here along with a yellow wire that comes from the ignition. And I'll show you guys on my wiring diagram. And this is for, I don't know how many B bodies you can use, but this yellow wire, it comes from inside. This is from inside, and once you hit that and turn your key, it ignites this, which then ignites this one. And that's where, this terminal, and that's where I have it going. So then that will hit the starter. Okay. Okay, this is where you want it in crank and run position for 12 volts. I think some guys that were doing this, it would turn over, but it wouldn't start. And so what I did was I took the brown wire, which it's still part of the factory wiring. This is the brown wire right here. And there's also a blue wire. And it was on both sides of the ballast resistor that was mounted up here. Well, I ran the brown wire inside, and I have another wire inside, and I'm running I've got them together, but I got it on an anti-theft switch. And it's hidden under the dash somewhere to where the car won't turn over. It won't do anything unless it's switched. Okay, this one's grounded on the inside. This one I have going to a fuse panel inside. Okay, so these two are relays. So fuel pump feed, these two come out right here. They're part of this harness on the outside of it. And so I've got a fan and fuel pump relay. Now there's fuses inside here for those, but some people were having issues with the fan, it blowing it. And I was gonna do a relay for the fuel pump anyway. So I had some of these left over from my last build, and they actually have a place you could put a fuse, which is pretty cool. So this is mounted outside, and then yeah, everything plugs in. So all this stuff stays outside, right? These two grounds I've got, now it's hard to see, I've got them ground to the firewall. These two plug into the back of this. And then this is where a grommet is. And what I did was I took that grommet out, and I didn't want to drill into the passenger side because on this on this car, let me see if I got a light. Hold on. All right, so on here, and this might be kind of hard to see, but this harness right here, that's a vacuum hose, but underneath it, there's a harness underneath that. There it is right there. So it runs up underneath the brake booster kind of, and that's the body harness. So I've got it coming in underneath. Let me see if I can get a good picture. There it is right there. So what I did was I took that and it was further in the engine bay, and I slid it up to here, and that's where your clutch would go. This is an automatic car, and it had like an oval look shape to it, so I had to cut it all the way out as a circle. But you know, I've got this OBD 2 port here. This is for the pedal, and the lighting is horrible in here. All right, I think that's going to do it for this one. It's just wiring. It's pretty monotonous, boring stuff, but I mean, once this is over, then it's go time. But let me know if you got some questions. I'll try to answer them depending on what you have got going on and all that kind of stuff. And next video should be trans and hopefully drive shaft and exhaust. Thanks.